Hey, 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 Allison Crow here from AllisonCrow.com, and I am participating today in a 24-hour global summit put on by Lisa Copeland. I met Lisa Copeland 21 years ago when I bought my first house. Her husband has been my mortgage broker ever since. I'm here in the Austin area, and I am a life and business coach. I started out in hardcore sales coaching and in the real estate industry. And I have since, for the last 10 years, I've run my own coaching company. And so I just want to welcome new viewers. I want to welcome replay viewers. And I want to thank you for spending time with me this morning. I'm honored to be asked by Lisa to be in this conference. And she has kind of a different sphere, a little bit of overlap. I know she does a lot of stuff in the auto industry and sales and leadership. And so I'm just excited to bring my message to you guys and also to bring my guys to your messages. So today what I want to talk about is letting go of imposter syndrome. And I have been coaching for the last 16 years. And I work with two kinds of people. I work with recovering overachievers, really high achievers, who really want to get the soul back in their business. And then I also work with soulful people who need to learn business strategy. And so I come at it from both sides. And one of the things that I have learned in over 30,000 hours of coaching is that, it's asking me to post to LinkedIn. Good morning. Good morning. So one of the things that I have learned from almost every conversation that I have that is able to go really deep is that underneath every situation that is going on, when we get to the deeper layers, there is doubt and fear. And especially from high achievers, we have this thing, imposter syndrome. And I have a colleague that's been asking me for a year, 2 years to talk about imposter syndrome. And I didn't really understand what that was. And so I took some time and talked to some people, and I realized that underneath even the greatest achievements, and often in the tender places of people's hearts, lives doubt, fear, imposter syndrome. And one of the things in studying human behavior that I know is we have a need for certainty, right? And in this time of COVID-19, the number one thing that has been taken away from so many people is certainty. And you all realize that certainty is a basic human need. And so no wonder there is a disruption of not only our normal ways of working and being in the world and connecting in the world, businesses. There is so much certainty upheaval right now, right? And what I'm finding fascinating, this is a difficult time. And what I'm finding fascinating is our need for certainty is highlighted right now because so much certainty has been taken away. And if we take this back, if we take the need for certainty into regular, ordinary, everyday life and how this relates to imposter syndrome or how this relates to doubt, one of the things that I realized when we slow down or when I have a conversation with people or the way the human brain works is most of us are out there running so fast, right? Some people have said this COVID-19 is like this great opportunity for us to slow down, the earth to slow down. Some of the places where people have been quarantined for a long time, the air is getting clean over the cities where people are not driving and staying at home. And when we begin to slow down, our brain is able to feel more uncomfortable feelings. And so as a behavior coach, as a productivity coach, as a heart-centered coach, one of the things that I know that motivates people is actually the deep layers of fear and the emotions they want to avoid. And so y'all realize, like, even if we want to go towards something, where we self-sabotage, where we begin to have thoughts of, am I really worthy? Does this really matter? Am I really worthy? I'm not really, like, this is too easy for me, right? There's all kinds of thoughts that show up. A couple of weeks ago, I had a call with a bunch of mortgage brokers, title people, and real estate people, very high performing women. And we did not record the call. And yet so many, and for that reason, so many women were willing to admit that they really struggle, fabulous careers, but they really struggle with feeling credible is not the word they use, but this imposter syndrome. And what it really is, you guys, for most people, is deep down, there is actually not a fear of failure, but the doubt masks a fear of success. And the reason is that the world tells us that success makes us feel a certain way, but oftentimes to the nervous system, success leads to uncertainty, right? Success leads to, this is what the brain is telling the body. And so success is leading to, in the deepest subconscious parts of ourselves, if I'm successful, I'll be rejected. If I'm successful, I'll be made fun of. So I love that Lisa's, to kick off the summit, Lisa talked about a mediocre mindset, right? And what's interesting is human nature, if you're not intentional, human nature will choose mediocrity because misery of mediocrity is more known than the glory of you being your full self. And even though we can fantasize about that glory, we can set goals for that glory, actually implementing it bumps up against our nervous system's need to be safe and accepted at a tribal level. Okay, track with me. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to actually, as I was thinking about this, and I had titled it Full Glory a long time because that phrase came out one day in a coaching session. And I work with so many amazing people that their struggle is never how to be the champion in their own life and business. Their struggle is often the doubt that comes up. And so I want to share with you an acronym for Full Glory that will help you through this. Full Glory, FULLGLORY. So number one is F in Full Glory, face your protective self. All right, so often in the coaching world and the positive mindset world, we're like, get rid of the negativity. And I want to pose that when we really go deep and we look into our protective self and the voices and the fears and the doubts, and we meet them in conversation and with compassion, they actually have great wisdom for us. And so doubt shows up as a protective self. Fear shows up as a protective self. These are neurobiological ways of your brain working to keep you safe, right? And so when we can meet it, then we can actually be the antidote for it. The protective self is always talking to you. It is probably the thing that holds you the most back. And I love calling it the protective self because we realize that its motive is to protect us, and we can meet that with letting it know that we're actually safe. So the second thing is you in full. You are the key. You are the key. Your energy is the key. So often we are putting our power and our ability at the deepest levels in whether or not we'll be accepted or liked. And that leads me to the 2 L's of full, for Full Glory. Let go of the need for approval and let go of people pleasing, right? Letting go of the need for approval and people pleasing. And when there's a book called, the 4 agreements. And one of the 4 agreements is take nothing personally. And so many of us take everything personally. And because we take everything personally, we're trying to protect ourselves from rejection. And y'all realize in tribal days, like, right, when our brain first existed, not only was our brain trying to save us from the proverbial tiger, but our brain was also trying to save us from being kicked out of the tribe. Because if you were kicked out of the tribe, you didn't survive. But now it's not like that. And so many people, actually high achievers, a lot of times high achievers are originally driven by the need to be pleasing and the need to be accepted. And what happens, I see a lot of people break down midlife, mid-career, and they have a midlife awakening. And the midlife awakening comes when they realize the way that they have been performing is out of alignment with their heart and soul's desires. And so when we begin to say, what would I approve of? If I knew I wouldn't fail, y'all have heard that statement. If I knew I wouldn't fail, what would I do? If I knew that I would be totally loved. And so we begin to let go of the need for approval, let go of the fear. So let me do full glory again. F is face your protective self. Really get to know the voices inside your head. And instead of just shoving away the difficult ones, the voices of doubt, fear, shame, blame, guilt, comparison, people pleasing, begin to have relationships with them. When you can communicate with that side, that shadow side of yourself, there is so much opportunity for unwinding the thoughts that are not useful. You are the key. You are the energy. We often put that energy and the power outside of us. And I want you to begin realizing that you are the power. L is let go of the need for approval. Approve of yourself. One of the biggest career transitions that I ever made. I worked for an amazing company. I was given lots of opportunities, but I just had this knowing. I had this knowing that I was meant to do something different. And I remember sitting I was newly married for the second time. I was sitting in my house and I just knew in my mind that I had done well for this company. And I had a story in my mind that so-and-so and so-and-so didn't approve of me. So-and-so and so-and-so didn't approve of me. And I began to do a little bit of Byron Katie's work. And I turned that around and I was like, oh, I'm not approving of me. What decision would I make if I approve of me? And so I want you to think about that. If you gave yourself full approval and permission, what would you do? Right? And so often our behaviors are about getting permission, getting acceptance, and pleasing from other people. So that's full. So glory, here we go with glory. Go deep, live from the inside out. We are trained in a culture that teaches us to live from the outside in. And the process of beginning to go deeper and figuring out what your desires are, what's in alignment with your spirit, what's in alignment with your calling. When you begin to live from the inside out, not only can you absolutely create more success than you've ever dreamed of, it feels good. It's what I call soulful success. Your soul is full. And so many people living from the outside in have created success, but feel empty on the inside. So how we begin to, I have not fed him. I did give him his medicine though. Early morning dog duties in our house. So G for glory is go deep, live from the inside out. Find somebody to help you to really explore the internal patterns that you've been living consciously and subconsciously. It can set you free. Then here we get to some of the outer tactics. Leverage your credibility. L in glory is leverage your credibility. You guys, my coach said this to me in January. It's so funny because what I teach, I still need. And I've created a lot of success, but every once in a while there is this self-sabotaging voice. And my coach just looked at me and said, do you remember who you really are? I share with my clients all the time to remember who you really are. And she just said, Allison, you have so much credibility. Leverage your credibility. leverage the time you have on task, leverage this. And so I want to remind each of you, I want you to think about your credibility, and don't think about it like the chief dismisser of your credibility. I want you to write down everything, both career, inside, outside. Why are you credible? Why are you born for this moment? Along with leveraging your credibility is own your genius. I love that Scott Simons said, as he was setting up for, telling people about my session, Lead from Your Full Glory, he was saying that now is not the time to shrink back. People need something you have. And I get, this goes back up to the original conversation, is that a lot of times that protective self says, oh no, they don't need you. They do. You do. You need to live in your full glory. So leverage your credibility, own your genius. R in glory, remember who you really are. Remember who you really are. You are resilient. You guys, your acceptance by your peers, your acceptance by your family, your acceptance even by clients, if they're not right aligned, that's not your security. Your resilience is your security. And what I love about this time with COVID-19, a lot of people are going to be impacted. A lot of people have already been impacted. And your job is not your security. Somewhere along the way, we were taught that money is our security. Money sure helps us make choices, but you are resilient. You are resilient. That's your security. You are not what other people think about you. You are what you think about you. You are what you think about you, and you are not your accomplishments and failures. I find this in highly successful people. We tend to identify with all the greatness that we've done. I struggle with that too. I'm like, who am I without my business? But the reality is, you are not your business. You are not your accomplishment. You are not your failures. You are the spirit in human form out there being. And you are called to be in your full glory. And finally, the why of glory is you were born for this. You were born for this. If you can go really past the deep layers of what society expects of you, then you can tap into, if you can move beyond those voices of doubt and realize that they're just trying to protect you, if there's nothing to be protected from, then you can move forward with gentle, wise, slow confidence. Right, you guys? Imposter syndrome is just one of the many manifestations of doubt and fear of success. And think about it. I had a client a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about this, and I asked her. I said, "This woman raises tons of money for nonprofits. She is a high-level coach. She's a single mom. She is fantastic." And I asked her. I said, "What is the biggest doubt thought that goes in your head?" And she says that I'm a terrible mother. And so we sat down and talked about it. This was in a group session, and the words came out. I was like, "Are you really a bad mother?" And she's like, "No, actually, I'm a great mother." But think about this. If she goes to her son's baseball game, sits down with the other mothers, and the mothers sit down on the bench while they're watching their sons, and they're like, "How's it going?" Most people are like, "Oh, it's really hard." Misery loves company. And what happens psychologically and tribally if she comes up and says, "You know what, you guys, I am killing it as a mother. My son is doing really well. I am killing it. I am feeling really good most of the time about being a mother." Then the other mothers start to pull away. And so one of the things that we do in our communities, and I want to encourage you all to do, is, I realize that vulnerability, I love vulnerability and authenticity. I've built a business on it, right? But part of vulnerability, Brene Brown talks about this, part of vulnerability and the truest vulnerability is the ability to shine. For you to own your genius, remember who you really are, and live as you are born for this is the truest vulnerability. She talks about in one of her books that joy is the real vulnerability, right? So it's not just our difficult stories, it's in our greatness. And one of the things I want to encourage you to do as a peer of greatness to support this in all of us is to celebrate when other people are doing well, to not minimize it. Of course, it's okay if we're having difficult times, but we have got to really, I don't want to say glorify success. We got to glorify humanity. And part of humanity is living in the range of both difficult times and amazing times. I think the Bible says, there is a time, there is in Ecclesiastes, right? There's a time for both and. There is a time for both and. And so we have got to be really loving when people are having a great time. If somebody else is doing well in their life, that does not take away from your pain. And if you are in pain, you don't have to take away from somebody else's glory. So one of the things I see happening right now, I see two things happening. I see people diminutizing their pain because somebody else's pain in COVID-19 is worse. Oh, so my pain doesn't matter. I have a client, bless her heart, her sons are not getting to do their senior year stuff. And they're really sad. And she's like, but I feel bad. Feeling bad about it because there's so many people have it worse. Do you realize that both can exist? Your pain does not take away from somebody else's. And when we live from the inside out, you're owning your story. Right? And it also, when you own your story, you give permission for other people to own theirs instead of project it. The other thing I see is people saying, this hasn't really impacted me. I'm doing great. This is the best my business has ever been. And it's not meant to be rude or say that somebody else is, but both can coexist at the same time when we can have the range of humanity. All right? Think about what it would be like to fully trust yourself. Trust yourself. I get that we want to learn the how-to, but before the how-to is the who you be. And most of the people in my sphere of influence have lived plenty of life. They have had plenty of experiences. And actually, the journey of trusting yourself. Why on earth? You're not an imposter. What is there to really doubt? Yeah, you might fall on your head. You might fail. One of the things I said recently is now is a time for leaders. And as leaders, we will screw it up. Y'all realize that? But we got to lead anyways. If we need ourselves to be perfect, then we're not here. There's no reason to be here. Lead anyways. Go forward, doing the best you can. Live in your full glory. So I want to go through this one last time. I have a little acronym for full glory. My belief is that underneath the greatest achievements, we as human beings subconsciously still want to avoid the most difficult emotions. And sometimes miserable emotions are actually more comfortable than the deeper fear of rejection and the need to people please. So we've got to let those two things go. So full glory, face your protective self, face it. You are the key. You are the energy. Please, for so long, we have been taught it's not about you. And sweethearts, it really is about you. It's about you and your relationship with your higher power. It is about you. Your world does revolve around you, and that is not selfish. That is self-centered. And when you are self-centered, centered in self, when you are in your fullest energy, you have the opportunity to impact the world just by being in the room. L, let go of the need for approval. Approve of yourself. L, let go of fear of people pleasing. Let go of people pleasing. I am not telling you to go around and flip the bird to other people, but you have got to give other people permission to not be around you. I remember when I left my real estate company, she was like, why would you leave 100,000 agents? And I was like, I only need 7 people. I don't need the world to be aligned with my message. I only need my people to be aligned with my message. And that means I have to give permission for other people to think I am crazy, that I am wrong. You know, I'm still selling right now, and some people think that is horrible. Why? So that I can keep putting money into the economy and actually help people who can't work? Why would I stop working? Why would I stop working? And you know what? If I get too worried about what somebody else thinks of me, so we've got to let go of people pleasing. For glory, go deep, live from the inside out. L, leverage your credibility. O, own your genius. R, remember who you really are and move in the world from that remembering. And when I write the word remember, I spell it out, REMEM, capital BE. Remember who you be. And be is a conjugation of I am. And that is your true spiritual nature, who you be. And then finally, why you were born for this. You were born for this. I want to thank y'all so much for spending time with me today. Hello to the new people. Rick says, humanity is glorified at its greatest moments. Humility made perfect in the depth of weakness to the mountaintops of victories. Yes, Rick, we have got to give permission for both and. And so if you are struggling right now, I get it. I feel you. And if you're doing really well right now, I get it. And I feel you. And there is permission for both of those to exist in this world. Everybody has a holy role. Your role is holy. And if you're suffering right now, your suffering is holy. And if you are succeeding right now, and if you are feeling good, and if you are leading and helping people, or you're thriving right now, that's holy too. Remember who you be. Thanks again to Lisa Copeland. I want to tell y'all who's next. I love this. I love that Jan Goss-Gibson is up next. I took a class from Jan. I teach this to my clients all the time. And so she taught us in Texas. She's a civility expert. And her topic is about making a first impression. And so Jan, she should be tagged in the description, Jan Goss-Gibson. That's hyphenated. And I remember Jan teaching, we live in Texas. And so one of the things I took away from her class was when you walk into a room, don't say, hi, say hello. And to this day, when I meet somebody new, I don't say, hi, I say, hello. I say hello. And I bring that energy actually into what we're talking about. I live from my inside out, confident in the full glory of who I am, and say hello. So I'm excited to pass the baton to Jan. You can search her name or her profile and she will pop up. I will tag her in the comments as soon as I get off. Thank you so much for spending time with me. Again, I am Allison Crow. I like to say I'm your favorite life and business coach. And what I want most for you is for you to lead from your full glory, live from your full glory, parent from your full glory. And that means the range of humanness, owning who you are on all spectrums with the most gentle confidence, with the most self-loving confidence. And then when you move in the world, you radiate something different. You are the energy. And when we are owners of that, we cannot be victims of the world. And we can release this imposter syndrome, this doubt for good. And we can begin to embrace and move and live and work in self-trust. It will blow your mind. Thanks so much for spending time with me. Y'all hit Jan Goss-Gibson. If one of you who is friends with her can tag her in the comments, that would be awesome. Thank you so much. Lisa, again, thank you for inviting me to share love with your clients. Peace out, you guys. I'm Allison at AllisonCrow.com. Mwah.